Hello, everyone, and welcome to Console Room. Please welcome Christopher Jones. Check the switch, slide the switch up.
Thank you very much.
No, when I left them, they were on.
Hello? All right, well, without much further ado, since we've already waited longer than we wanted to, please welcome Peter Malcolm Gordon Moffat, known to us as the Fifth Doctor, Peter Davison. That's a little shakier than your model.
That TARDIS is as structurally challenged as the one we used in the show, you know.
Well, we wanted to make you feel better about the quality of the sets and props from your era of the television show.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you?
I am wonderful. It's great having you here. Do you remember having been here? I believe 1986.
I have been
you were here for a
reminded
convention?
several times over the past day.
Well, we've been pining for your return. You see, since then.
I was here, 1986, I think it was.
That's what I'm told.
40 years ago next year. And it was just one night. It was one night, and it was a show run by a guy called Ron Katz, who ran the Doctor Who Fan Club of America, I think. And he was nuts, but we went to about 7 cities, and we turned up here. I think we were about third along. And as I've been reminded, by the end of the night, I was quite exhausted. Because we just arrived literally on a plane, arrived to the prom center, I think it was, went on stage, I talked and signed autographs, and then, and I think Anton, who's looking after me, he said I could barely raise my head by the end of the evening to look at him when I was signing his book. So a pretty sad occasion, really. So I'm very happy to be back here to make up for the lack of attention I showed back then.
So what have you been doing since then?
Oh, this and that. I don't know. Yeah, this and that. I've managed to keep going pretty well, actually. I think somebody asked me to write a blurb for my career, and I wrote the other week I was doing something, and I said, just say that I'm best known for still being here after 50 years.
That's not a terrible thing to be known for. Well, not that I expect this whole thing to be chronological, but jumping back to the beginning, you went to drama school.
Yes, it doesn't show, does it? But yes, I did. Yes, I went to drama school.
How early did you have the ambition that you knew that you wanted to act?
When I failed all my exams, and there was nothing else I could do, really. We had exams in the UK at that time were called GCEs, and I didn't really work very hard, and I got 1 out of the 5 subjects I took, which wasn't enough to get me anywhere at all. So then the drama teacher at the school said, why don't you try for drama school? So I thought, I'll give it a go. I didn't really I was quite keen in stage management, actually, at the time. I'd used to do that at school for the shows, but never really appeared. But I just thought it was a nice idea. You know, I used to listen to a lot of comedy radio shows, which were quite big when I was growing up. So things like Hancock's Half Hour, I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again, which had John Cleese and Michael Palin. No, Michael Palin wasn't in it, but anyway, John Cleese was in it. And so I used to love those shows, and I thought I'd really like to do sketches.
We had a wonderful history in this country of drama and comedy for radio back in the the 30s and 40s, and once television came along, a lot of that kind of went away. But in Britain,
It's a shame. Yeah, Jack Benny and people like that, radio
Yeah, yeah.
shows, famous radio shows.
But in Britain, that's continued right along. I don't know how much of that is because of the BBC and its structure.
It's almost entirely the BBC, and there's no, there's no advertising, so you didn't have that problem of mixing those two things together, which are always slightly awkward in those US radio shows. They'd have to sort of break into an advert, wouldn't they? I used to listen to them. But yeah, so a Sunday lunchtime was, I think, about 3 straight comedy half hours every week, and they were fantastic. And they used to record them in theatres just with around a microphone. So I enjoyed doing that. So I thought I would like to do something like that. So I applied for drama school, and miraculously I got in. I don't quite know how it happened. And then after I left drama school, I miraculously got a job. And then they just could have kept coming after that.
When you were going through drama school or when you were fresh out of it, I mean, did you have a particular idea of the kind of material you wanted to do, the kind of career you wanted to have?
No, I had no idea about what I was going to do in the future at all, really. I came out and thought, oh, I'm an actor now. What I really wanted to be was a songwriter. I was writing songs at that time, and I used to send them off to record companies, and I got a couple accepted. Didn't do anything at all. But nevertheless, so the acting was almost like an interruption. I remember when I got a job doing a play in Edinburgh, I was thinking, oh, now I can't record any more songs. So it was a kind of distraction. And then in the end, acting distracted me from the songwriting. So I then went off and did that. It was probably fortunate that it did, because I hadn't been enormously successful as a songwriter. Interestingly, I've got 2 sons and a daughter, of course. I'm not forgetting her, but she's kind of settled now. I've got 2 sons, and they're both inevitably in the business. Not because they have, I don't think, a passion about it. Well, yeah, no, they do have a passion. That's not fair. A passion about it, but not because they want to be hugely successful. They just want to work, and it's what they know. And I think they've watched me sitting around the home, actually, not doing very much at all. But I think it's quite a nice lifestyle, So anyway, they're doing it. But one of them is very worried about the future. And what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to get work? Is this going to work out? What if I meet someone? We want to start a family. Am I going to have enough money? And the other one, who really reminds me of me, just doesn't think about it at all. Just blindly goes on, and he's doing okay. So it's. I don't think you do. You get very depressed if you thought about it. If you're an actor starting out, you get a bit depressed if you thought about the future. Because for most actors, it's quite bleak. If you work at all, you're scrabbling around for money. And I noticed, and I can't help noticing when I come to America, because for some reason I watch the telly more in America than I do in Britain. But all these adverts that are on with these poor young actors pretending that they have bad constipation or whatever it is they're pretending. I just think, that's what most actors do, because there are just too many of us and not enough jobs to go around. So I count myself very, very fortunate for 2 reasons, because I got jobs, and in those days there were just 3 channels in the UK. And so if you got a big series, people then knew who you were. Nowadays, you can do... sorry, am I rambling a bit?
That's fine.
Okay. Nowadays, I notice, you can do 5 series of something on Netflix, and when you finish it, no one knows who you are. No one in the business. It just doesn't make a mark. If you've got that streaming channel and you happen to like that show, then you'll be aware of it. But
I keep hearing about shows that I've never heard of before that are going on season 5.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But what that means is when you eventually leave and you go in for the next audition, the chances are that the people who are producing it, are casting it, won't have any idea who you are at all. In the old days, that wasn't like that. You know, it was once you'd made your mark, everyone knew who you were.
Well, and the first, I mean, my perception, the first big breakout for you was All Creatures Great and Small, yes?
I did a series called Love for Lydia, which actually did quite well in the... No, the very first thing I did was the Tomorrow People. And much as I would love to erase that from my CV, there's nothing I can do. When I did it, and it was, I think, 3 episodes or something of it, in those days, the show was shown once on telly, and maybe possibly a repeat, but unlikely on ITV. You'd never be seen of again. That show would never be heard of again. Right? And then some bugger invented VHS. And then suddenly I would go to conventions. I was happily going to conventions at that time. And then someone would say, oh, I saw you in the Tomorrow People on Nickelodeon. I've got it on VHS. And I would go, oh, no.
Imagine people having shelves full of recordings of your old television shows.
It's a terrible thought.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
It haunts me now. Anyway, so Tomorrow People aside, I did this series called Love for Lydia, which was quite a big series, and I thought it would be my big break. And while I was waiting for it to come out on TV, I went up for this little job, which I didn't really think much about, to play this supporting role in this series about vets. And I remember even not being that excited when my agent rang me up and told me I got the part, because I thought that this Love for Lydia was going to would sort of be a big move for me. And then so we started All Creatures, did it, went out on television, and suddenly everyone in the bloody country was watching it. It was quite extraordinary. Yeah, that was the big break. That's what got me known.
Now, after so that ran a few years, and then it was not terribly long after the end of that Doctor Who came your way?
Well, what happened was we did 3 series of All Creatures Great and Small, and that took the books. I don't know if any of you know the books, but they go up to the war, the outbreak of war, and we stopped then, and we all decided that was it. So we all went off and did different things. I went off and did a couple of comedy shows, and then I did Doctor Who. So I did Doctor Who, and when I was doing my last season of Doctor Who, they rang up and said, oh, they want to do an All Creatures Great and Small Christmas special. So then I went back to All Creatures for a couple of years, and then I went off and did, I think, A Very Peculiar Practice, series called A Very Peculiar Practice, and then Campion. And when I'd finished all those, All Creatures Great and Small was still going. So I came back to it again. So I was in it right at the end, and quite a few episodes in between.
Oh, that's marvelous. So with Doctor Who, a lot has been made over the years, I think, of the fact that you were the first of the generation that had been a fan of the show to then come to be on the show. And I seem to remember hearing you say that there was some trepidation on your part about taking the role because you thought at the time that the Doctor would be played by an older actor.
Who's blown up? What's happened?
Everything okay? Okay. Well,
Okay.
that was exciting.
Yeah.
But you were the youngest actor who'd played the role at the time.
Yes.
You've ended up between the TV show and the audios continuing to play this character.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you are able to find any shadings to it now that are different, or do you feel locked into a performance that you crafted back then?
It's a bit of both. You got your character as the Doctor, but I decided when we came back to do Big Finish, for example, that there was no point in trying to act as if I was, 28 or whatever I was, 29. And so I just decided to play it as I would play that part now. And no one ever said anything, so I just carried on with that. So I think there's a lot of shading, but not least because the TV program Doctor Who is very much about running up and down corridors, so there's much more dialogue in the Big Finish. Necessarily, it's an audio.
And thankfully, it doesn't have to be memorized.
It doesn't have to be memorized. That's a great help. Although I wasn't bad at memorizing it, actually. But anyway, so you do have an opportunity to extend your character. I think we've all found this. I think Colin's found the same thing. It's an opportunity just to fill in the gaps that you couldn't really do. In my case, because I was quite young and I came at it thinking, I didn't think I was too young. It was when I was offered it, I was hesitant, but mostly hesitant because I was doing quite a lot of stuff. I'd left All Creatures, I'd done comedy series, I'd done a drama one-off thing, and then I got offered Doctor Who. And I thought, is this going to affect, me working in the future? It's great to do. I couldn't really turn it down, I knew that. But I did force John Nathan Turner to take me out for lunch and pay for it. Which is unusual for a BBC producer. They never like to do that sort of thing. And then he gave me a little too much wine. So I just said, yes, I'll do it. All right, fine. But I don't regret it at all. No, it was a great opportunity. But obviously, how can you turn it down? It's an iconic role that I had grown up watching. So it was a bit like an offer I couldn't refuse.
Were there moments that fandom really came to play when like old villains would return, or? Oh
yeah, I mean it was enormously exciting from that point of view. You were literally, I always likened it to playing in the street. When you're a kid, we used to play whatever whether it was Popeye or Superman, whatever those silly games where you're playing when you're a kid, and it was like that. You're doing it for television cameras and they're recording it and putting it out. So you're saving the universe every week. It was tremendously exciting. And you used to cause quite a stir. When we go to a small village and we stick up the TARDIS on the village green, people would just come out of their houses and go, wow. So you felt, you were doing something amazing. But, inevitably, as an actor, you have this slight uncomfortable notion about staying in the same part for too long. You always want to be moving on. I have to say, it annoys the hell out of me when an actor gives up a part because they say, I've been doing it too long. But I know that if it was me, I'd be saying exactly the same thing. But because I like a series, I just want them to go on until they drop dead. But it's kind of built into all of us. You can't do it for too long, otherwise you'll just get stuck in too much of a rut. So, although how I would have felt about doing Big Finish and going back to Doctor Who if I hadn't been working, doing other things, I don't know. But I've always been very happy to do it because it never stopped me working Doctor Who. It was doing Big Finish is fun because I get to shout at Janet Fielding a lot.
Well, it seems for both actors who played the Doctor or the companions or any major role in the series, that for the rest of your career, it's of two tracks. It's everything else you do, and then you've been part of Doctor Who.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a true of the entire population. I mean, it's certainly true of Doctor Who fans. But there are people actually who have said to me, "Oh, I never saw you in Doctor Who, but I like you in this, and I like you in that." But it's we get this idea because I'm heavily involved in it, obviously. So the idea that people don't know this, that I was the Doctor, is always a bit kind of like startling. But there are people out there who haven't watched it and don't watch science fiction or don't watch those.
But aside from how large that audience is, I mean, even just with your schedule, whether it's going to conventions or doing the Big Finish audios or whatever it is, Doctor Who keeps being this ongoing thing, not just a line in your CV.
Yeah, and that's great, isn't it? I mean, the fact that you have got this steady little thing of, they ring up and go, come and do a Big Finish today. Is lovely. So it's a very good thing to be carrying on with. And it doesn't, as I said, the main thing for me is it's never stopped me being offered other work. So I'm very happy to do it, and I love doing it.
The photos you have shared of the recording space that you set up in your home are amazing.
Oh, yeah, that was quite good, wasn't it? I built a little TARDIS recording studio in the cupboard.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, there are roundels on the walls. It's amazing.
But it's even smaller on the inside than it is on the outside. That's it.
Well, as soon as you get that dimensional engineering down, it'll be a whole new ballgame.
I loved it because I used to write songs, right? So when COVID came along and everything stopped, I had all the stuff. I had all the technical stuff to build the studio in my cupboard under the stairs. So I had all the computers and the interfaces and the microphones. I did go out and buy a great microphone, which I just sit and look at every day. It's a Neumann U87. So, but it was I was almost like I was prepared for COVID, and I just spent months inside the cupboard doing different things.
I work in the animation industry these days, and a lot of voice actors have obviously made the shift to home studios and whatnot. So when you do that material, you're, I assume, like in a live video chat and being directed?
Well, no, funnily enough, even though I built a lovely studio in the cupboard, and I still do some voiceovers, I do documentaries and things from the studio. But when we were allowed out of our houses again, we were all very keen to go back into the studio. So now we do the big finishes in the studios in London, all of us together. Which is it's much better. I would have been fine, but Janet is not very technically advanced. So we'd spend hours and hours waiting for Janet to get her microphone to work or an interface to work or something to work. So no, that wasn't the reason. But it's just fun. It's nicer. Because it's like a big family now, So when I work with Janet and Sarah, or we do a convention with Colin Sylvester, it's like you're seeing people you now. We've got to know through the conventions, really. It's unlikely, had it not been the conventions, that I would have seen much of Colin or Sylvester or all the other companions, that there have been along the way. And now every time we see them, it's like we're all part of the same terrible gang.
Well, that makes me want to jump ahead to something else I had wanted to ask you about. There was no way I was going to get a chance to talk to you and not want to talk to you about the Five-ish Doctors, which was absolutely marvelous.
Yes.
And, among the many things that struck me about that, the chemistry is so good between everyone in it. And you almost forget these people weren't on the show together. No. But presumably after years of being on the convention circuit, you've gotten to know each other. You know each other's rhythms. Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, the very first Big Finish show we recorded was with Colin and Sylvester. But it was through conventions. I knew them very well, and I just thought, I did a convention called Gallifrey.
Oh yes,
Gallifrey 1. I think and I was meant to go there in 2010, and I couldn't because I got a show in London. So I did a little video, apologising for not being there, and it was quite a little funny thing. It was about 5 minutes long. It's quite funny. And then the next year, when I could go, I did another video about actually turning up, where I missed the plane and I went to the Doctor Who exhibition in London, and there was the actual TARDIS in there, and I went in and took off from the TARDIS in London and arrived in LA, and then came out. So we'd sort of established kind of the idea of that world where I'm this rather pathetic character who can't never get anything right.
It's very self-deprecating.
So when the Five-ish Doctors, when the 50th came up, I just wanted to do a little thing. I thought I was going to do it the same way with my little camera, my home sort of video camera. And so I got in touch with Colin and Sylvester and said, would you be a part of this? And they were slightly reluctant, I have to say, at the time, because I think it was going to be a busy year. It was the 50th year, so we were doing conventions and appearances all over the place. But I wrote a script and I sent it to Colin and Sylvester. They said, "Oh yeah, well I'll do it." Sylvester said, "I'll do it, but I am doing The Hobbit." So I don't know if I'm going to be available because I'll be doing The Hobbit. So I thought I'm going to put that in the script. So one of the themes in there is Sylvester has to keep going on boasting about he's in a big movie and he's anyway. So that. But then I had to send it to a BBC Cardiff, where Doctor Who was made at that time, and because I wanted to film something there on my video camera. So I sent them the script, and then I got this phone call saying, "Could you come down and see us now?" So I thought, oh my, I'm in trouble here. So I went down there. But then they said, "Oh, we'd like to give you a camera crew and a sound team, and we'd like you to film it properly for the 50th. I went, "Oh, okay." But they gave me a budget. I thought this was quite good, £25,000, right? Now, I don't know. I'm an actor. I don't know how much it costs to make programs. It sounded like a lot of money to me. So £25,000, thinking I've got £25,000. What should we do with all this money? And then they said, "Oh, good, we're going to put you together with our production coordinator over lunch." So I sat down for lunch with them, and literally inside 15 minutes, every single penny of the £25,000 was gone, because they said, "Well, this is going to cost this much. This is going to cost that." I said, "Well, the camera doesn't come free." So, "Oh no, it comes out of the budget." But we managed to. Then Colin and Sylvester suddenly realised that actually this was going to be quite fun, because it was quite clear that we weren't going to be in the 50th. So they really then changed their schedules a couple of times so they could come down and shoot the bits we needed to shoot. Running in and around the Doctor Who exhibition and things like that.
How tightly scripted was it? Because both that and those short videos you did for Gallifrey seemed like they had elements of finding the opportunities of, "Oh, we're at this convention, this person is there, I can do a scene with them."
It was pretty, to be honest, the Five-ish Doctors was pretty tightly scripted. There were scenes that were written at the last minute. So originally, the bit where we are protesting outside Television Centre, it was originally going to be Mark Gatiss who comes by and says, they film it in Cardiff. But then he wasn't available, or we couldn't get in touch with his agent or something. So I thought, well, let's get John Barrowman. And then I thought, well, it's a good joke. Why don't we give John Barrowman a secret family? So there's part of his family is my niece, my granddaughter, Olive, she was one of the little kids. And his wife was someone I was in at home with the Braithwaites in. Anyway, so we wrote that scene really quickly, and we shot it really quickly. And then Colin said to me, "Oh, can you write a scene with my family in it?" So then I just sat down and wrote this scene where he's forcing them to watch some, videos of him. So we always became this macabre, there's Sylvester whining on about being in The Hobbit, and so it just seemed, it almost wrote itself, but it was scripted. I mean, it wasn't, there actually was no real, the only bit that was kind of impromptu was Russell T Davies. So I gave him this speech where he has to leave a message on my answer machine at the end, and it was the speech was, I don't know, maybe a couple of paragraphs, right? And he just wouldn't stop talking. So this whole bit at the end where he goes, "Oh yes, and I can do this," and that was just Russell, just not. I just said, "No, let's just keep it running, keep running." So most of that speech was Russell just making it up as he went along. So it was brilliant. And then we had a great editor who helped us put it together. BBC. They kept trying to get me to cut bits out, Because they didn't understand what they didn't quite understand that this was about. And I know we say it, and it's going to sound terribly corny, and I don't mean it to be corny as it is. But the real reason we were doing it was for the fans of the classic series. So when they wanted to cut out, they wanted it to start. At one point, they said to me, "Why don't you just start it with you all going down to Cardiff?" So there was none of that bit at the beginning where, we're all waiting for the phone call and that sort of stuff. I thought, well, I'm going to be really corny and put it in there when I think Sylvester says, "But why are we doing this?" And I go, "For the fans." And then we go off and do it. But it was kind of true, it wasn't about the new. It wasn't about the new fans of the new series. It was about the fans of the classic series.
Absolutely.
That's what it was about. And I just thought it'd be fun to try and get in, to the actual final.
Well, having seen
50th.
both those Gallifrey videos and Five-ish Doctors, I would love to
you've
see
seen it,
more,
right?
more writing or directing from you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. One thing I learned though about is that I'm very stubborn, and I don't think that works. The majority of directors, TV directors, you have to accept a compromise. You can't just, because there's timing factors, there's all sorts of factors. And I was just, because I'd written it, I was just very determined to do it the way I wanted to do it, which on one hand you could say is good. On the other hand, I think that's possibly why no one has offered me a job since. Because I just said, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to cut this. I mean, I think if you were the guy who was telling me to cut it, you'd think I was an obnoxious little, idiot. Because I just wouldn't take any advice. Theoretically, they knew what they were doing. But actually, I don't think they did, because they didn't understand the wider breadth of it. But anyway, the point is, I think I would be trouble. If they said to me that tomorrow, "Peter, come down and direct a Doctor Who story for us," right? I think I would just I'd have a very certain view of it, and I would not be able to accept that anyone else knew what they were doing. So I don't think I'd be that good at it. So I'm very happy to have done the Five-ish Doctors, but and there was talk of doing something for this, the 60th, the recent one. But actually, I was never asked. I wrote a quite good little script, the idea of a script, but no one ever asked me to do it. So,
I imagine there's ways you could make that public.
No, I don't want to get myself into more trouble
enough.
than I've already got into now tonight, actually.
5-minute warning. We are going to be doing Q&A, so start getting some questions in your head. What? Oh, great. And we've got a microphone here. If you have mobility issues, we've got a runner with a microphone. So start getting them set. One other thing I want, since we're on the topic of anniversary specials, though, during your tenure, the Five Doctors, the 20th anniversary, as someone who had been a fan, it must have been amazing to get to work with past Doctors and all the monsters showing up at once and all of that.
It was, yeah. It was.
I'd love to hear any stories about that, but I would specifically love to hear that publicity photo shoot with the wax figure from Madame Tussauds.
Well, it served him right. He should have done the show. It's working with the waxwork was great.
Well, there was the one photo I had seen for years, and then I discovered, oh no, there's a whole series of them. And at one point, you're carrying the Tom Baker figure around.
Oh, probably, yeah. Well, they would never release that because the idea was that
No, but it got out there.
I got out there. Yeah, I'm sure. It was fun to do. I knew Patrick a bit because he'd done an episode of All Creatures. So I'd met him there, so I knew him a bit. But it was a great thrill. But the only problem was John Nathan Turner was worried that there would be too many egos on the set with John and Patrick and myself, I guess, and Anthony Ainley. So he kept us apart. It's a bit too much. I wish I'd had more to do with them. So John and Patrick had a nice little bantery thing going. but I wasn't involved in that bit. So I was. That's my only regret about it. That I wish he'd been brave enough to have us together for longer, because it was quite fun. Just having it would have been fun. Joining in the banter. That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough. All
All
right.
right.
Oh,
I'm going to do our first question from online.
okay. We'll do that, and then we'll take live questions. So, all right, go ahead.
We're currently at a wonderful convention. I admit biased. But this online person would like to hear about your first convention in Tulsa at the Camelot Hotel.
Yes, yes, that was bizarre. So I remember I arrived. The Camelot Hotel was a ridiculous hotel. I think it's since been pulled down. I think, and your rooms were on 2 levels, and it had a sort of moat around it as well. And I arrived at what was my time, I think, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to make my first appearance. And the first question I was asked was, as if I was the doctor, the past doctors. How do you approach? And they asked me about a story that I wasn't in. I don't even know who was in it, but anyway. So
What does regenerating feel like?
Well, no, they didn't actually ask that. They said, I think they said, "What's your process of playing Doctor Who?" I don't think I'd even started doing it then. And so I said I'd just get the script and learn the words, which didn't go down well, actually. I think they thought I was going to be full of deep motivation. Anyway, the biggest thing, most terrifying thing was it was shortly after John Lennon had been shot. I think it was. Anyway, but and they said I had a sort of press conference thing the next day. So I'm in the room with a load of people, about half a number that are here now, and I was asked, "Do you ever worry about being shot?" I thought, well, I haven't until now, but yes, since you mention it, in this murky room with all these people, it was a quite bizarre experience. But at the time, when John said we're going off to Tulsa, Oklahoma, for a convention, of course you leap at the chance. Someone's paying for your ticket to come to America. So I just went, but it was a learning experience, really, that you can't be too blasé with fans in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or they'll shoot you. So
Welcome to America. On a different topic. Question, please.
Hi. What's it like being David Tennant's father-in-law?
Am I? Oh, yeah.
For those that had Friday at 5, whatever it is, in the betting pool, sorry. It was inevitable.
Inevitable. Well, I give him advice. He doesn't necessarily take it. In fact, I don't think he ever takes it. But it was... I came up with a story, which I thought was rather good. When we did Time Crash...
Yeah.
Because that was just sort of prior. I was doing Spamalot, so I'm trying to think of the logistics of it. I don't think they'd work with each other at that point, but I don't think they weren't going out with each other. But so I did Time Crash, and then I thought I was asked this question at one convention. I said, well, it was my agreement that I would do Time Crash on condition that he took her off my hands, which I thought was quite... It's not actually true. But, yeah, no, yeah. He suddenly turned up at Spamalot. Georgia said, I've got 2 tickets for Spamalot tonight, I'm bringing someone. I went, oh, great. So then David Tennant turns up. I said, what's going on here? Well, according to my daughter, and I know daughters will never tell their fathers the truth, but nothing was going on. She said, he just keeps inviting me to the theatre, to shows I don't want to see. So I thought I'd bring him along to Spamalot rather than some, long Shakespearean drama, which he wasn't too keen on, which he keeps doing too. Anyway, so this went on for about 3 or 4 months. I kept saying, "What's going on?" She said, "Nothing." And then she said, rang me up one day and said, "Oh, he's. I think we're going out with each other now. He just asked me out." I said, "He's a bit slow, isn't he? I mean, this has been going on for months." But yeah, I suppose he was very gentlemanly. I think she was ringing me up and go, "I don't understand why he hasn't, done anything. He just keeps asking me to the theatre." Anyway, it's a very charming story. I probably shouldn't have told you that either. But I'm drunk on water, so here we go.
Thank you. Next question.
Yes. Hi. So I've been working my way through the Big Finish catalog, and I was just wondering, do you have any story or stories that are your particular favorites?
Yeah. One of the disadvantages of doing the Big Finish is at the speed with which we do them is it's very, very difficult to remember anything about any of the stories after we've done them. So they used to, when we would do a Big Finish, and then we go back 2 weeks later, and there's apparently a bit on the CD where they have a little interview with us. Anyway, so they'd ask me, 2 weeks later, they'd ask me about the previous story. And by that time, I'd forgotten everything about it. So now they have to ask me on the day that I'm doing it. And this is not alone. It's not me alone that is this. This is Janet can't do it, and all the others can't do it. Colin can't do it. Sylvester definitely can't do it. I mean, he can't remember anything at all about anything he's done, really. And
Well, at least when you're making the television show,
Yeah.
you remember being on a set. You remember being on
exactly.
location.
So a television show you do remember bits of because it's imprinted in your mind because you're doing it over the course of
you're in the
several
recording
weeks.
studio
But
with a script in
recording
front of
studio,
you.
yeah, it's just there, and then it's gone, and you're moving on to the next one. So all I know is that Spare Parts is quite good. So that's my answer to your question. Spare Parts, because it's the only one I can remember. There are many others I thought when we're doing them, oh, this is really good, but don't ask me what they were called. But they're generally, I think, a very good standard, though. And of course, then we do them without special effects. They're all put on after in the audio editing phase. So that's the answer to my question.
Next.
First of all, thanks for coming. We really are just delighted to have you here, Peter.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I have to say, one of my favorite roles that you've played is the role of Peter Davison on Toast of London. Can you talk about how that came about and what that was like?
Well, Matt Berry, it turns out, is another one of these sort of hidden Doctor Who fans that lurk around in the world of entertainment, certainly in Britain. So he just rang up one day and said, would Peter like to come and play a rather bizarre version of himself? So yeah, absolutely. Because I enjoyed Toast of London. I loved it, the show. So I was very pleased to come along and just, very bizarre twist on real life. And in fact, I think there's an episode in which basically I think I die. I get blown up or something. But then the following episode, I'm on the phone to the agent. You don't hear me. It's just in the script. But so nothing is sacred in that show. But it was great. It was very funny to do. Very funny to do.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. I'm hoping that this question isn't too offensive, but
Now that you've set it up like that.
yeah. Well, if Big Finish ever got the license back for the Tomorrow People, would you consider reprising the role of Elmer?
I just don't think I'd look very good in that outfit. Not that I appreciate I would have to do it on Big Finish, but they always want to take a photograph for the cover, don't they? I don't know. No, it was very silly. Also, I'd have to do it with my ex-wife as well. That might be slightly problematic. But it was. I came back. I think I did the commentary for the DVD
Yes,
for the
yes, you
episode.
did.
Yeah, That was fun.
Dragged
Because they
in
were
and
all
held
great.
down with
Do you know, the
chains.
tragedy of that story was that it was a comedy show. I mean, Tomorrow People was a very straight show, really. But they wrote this sort of comedy version of it. It's just a light-hearted story about space cowboys. And they all loved it. The stars of the show, they loved it because they weren't taking it quite so seriously. And there were plans to have us brought back because they loved it so much, and the producer loved it, and the writer loved it. And then when it went out on television, the kids hated it because we were sending it up. You know, I'd tickle the computer and things like that. So it wasn't that successful on the show when it went out. Our story. So I doubt anyone will want to revive it, really.
I don't know, a cynical, grizzled Elmer, I don't know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm currently in an art school, and I mainly do theater. Do you have any tips for someone who might want to become an actor when they're older?
I haven't given a very good thing earlier on, have I? If you were listening to that about the future of an actor, it's so hard. I would say anything you can do in theatre, do that. Don't think about it. You have to decide whether you want to be an actor or you want to be famous. If you want to be an actor, then you just persist, and you can probably have a good life doing little jobs odd jobs on television and theatre. Theatre, I think, it's not so common now, even in Britain, but it still exists. I'm not sure of what the theatre situation is over here in the States, but that's where you really, the jobbing actors. And it can be a good life in Britain. I know quite a few actors who just go from theatre job to theatre job, odd telly here, odd advert there, and they enjoy it. It's a very nice life. It's a sort of fascinating, and you're hanging out with all sorts of different people. But you have not said this, but I have had people in the past who've come up to me and said, "I want to be an actor stroke presenter," and I just think, stop right there, because you just want to be famous. If you want to be famous, don't persist with it, because the chances of you being famous are very, very slim. If you want to be an actor, then your chances are much better. So I can't really give you any tips about how to go about that, except every opportunity around where you live to if there's any kind of local theatre that's being done, whether it's amateur or professional, do it. And see if you like it and see how you feel about it.
Thank you.
That's the best I can do, sorry.
And if you get a series, leave after 3 seasons. I didn't think I was going to get an ooh. Yeah. Sorry. Hi. Please save me.
This is before my dad asks you his question. I was named after you in All Creatures Great and Small.
What was it? I heard all creatures.
He was named after you in All Creatures Great and Small.
You're Tristan.
He's a Tristan.
Hey, thank you. That's very nice. I take that as a great honor. Thank you very much. That's lovely. Do you like it being named after me? Is it okay? Just don't become a vet. No, don't run away. Oh no. Is he? Oh. Thank you very much. That's great. I'm very happy about that.
So his mom's a vet, so she may not. Anyway, talking about the craft, just to get the timeline straight, if I understand correctly, 6 months after David Tennant started dating your daughter, he became the Hamlet of our generation. So,
sorry, who was he?
David Tennant. So 6 months after he started dating your daughter.
Oh yeah.
He became the Hamlet.
Oh yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you for your mentorship of him. And on the craft, when you do like Kiss Me Kate, how do you approach it as Shakespeare or not as Shakespeare? Or
Well, the Kiss Me Kate, you mean the thing I did last summer?
Yes.
Yeah. It's based around, it's about people putting on a Shakespeare play. I don't know if you've seen it, but so it's a play within a play, really. But I wasn't playing anything that was anything to do with Shakespeare. I was an American general who was betrothed to the ex-wife of the main couple in it, and I'm a fairly hideous character in it, which actually I think I did rather well, actually. What that says about me, I don't know. Anyway, no, it was it was great. I was only on for 20 minutes. It was the best job, actually. As a skiving actor, it's the best job I've ever had, because I wasn't on at all in the first act. I was only on for 20 minutes in the second act. I had to come on and shout a lot and then fall asleep on stage. And so I could come in late every day and then sleep for the latter part of the... So as long as I could stay awake long enough.
But what if you started snoring? What if you started snoring?
Well, that is entirely possible. I don't know. You know, I didn't actually ever quite fall asleep. I lay, but there were moments where I thought, where the hell am I? Oh, I'm on stage. So not everyone in the audience could see me because we had a big revolve set and I was sort of off at the side. But if you're on that side of the theatre, I was in full view of the audience. But, you know, it was just great. I was just lying there. So
very restful.
Yeah, it got a bit boring, the bits when I wasn't on, you know, because I'm lying on stage thinking, oh, God, this song is going on forever. But no, it was a great show. It was a great show. And we had a Stephanie J. Block, who was a Broadway musical artist, and he did a fantastic job. Taught us how to be on Broadway, really. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it immensely. I think they're going to tour it, but they probably wouldn't get me to do it because I don't know, actually. I don't know why they wouldn't, but they haven't yet. So they may do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. A question about one of your other shows, At Home with the Braithwaites. What was it like to play David Braithwaite?
It was great. It was terrific because I had done mostly nice parts. And then I did one episode of something where I was an outgoing headmaster of a school, and I had to shout and scream at the kids. And that sort of changed people's perception of me, because I'd just been nice most of my time, even the Doctor, you know, or Tristan, generally quite low-key nice. And then I got offered At Home with the Braithwaites, where I was playing this rather unpleasant husband of a woman that wins all this money. And I thought, wow, they've just offered me the part. I didn't have to audition at all. And they've given me this part, which is really quite, gritty. So about after 3 months, we had a little break, and they showed clips of the show, which looked great for the crew. And I said to the producer, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to play this, nasty part. And he said, well, thank you very much for playing it so nicely. And that's when I realized that what they had there was they had this deeply unpleasant character, and they thought, let's just get someone who plays nice parts normally to play it, and it won't be so offensive. So that's what they did. So I didn't get it because they thought I could do it really horribly, really kind of powerfully. They did it because they thought I'd just make it a bit nicer. Slightly disappointing. But nevertheless, I love the series. It was written by Sally Wainwright, who I've done several shows for recently, since then, and I did one just before Christmas. Not just a nice part, little cameo in it, but I think she's one of the great TV writers at the moment in the UK. So anything she offers me, I just say yes to straight away. No, I mean seriously. She's one of those people you don't have to read the script. If Sally Wainwright offers you a part, I just think it's going to be worth doing. But Home with the Braithwaites, I thought was a terrific series. Everyone sort of in it, I thought, pulled their weight amazingly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Over half of the shows listed in our convention program are available in a streaming service here called BritBox.
Oh, really?
including
Oh, yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
with Great Braithwaite.
Oh, it's on BritBox.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird because it was actually an ITV show, and BritBox I thought was BBC. But yeah, I think they probably take in shows from both sides. It's worth taking a look at because I think it probably, although I haven't seen it, I think it probably has aged quite well.
It has.
You know, it's very funny.
You know, I've seen it. It's tremendous range. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's fun to do.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Hi.
Hi there. I can't help noticing that almost everything I've seen that you've played, you fall down so much and so beautifully, and with a different sound attending each fall and starting.
She said in the different things she's seen you in, you fall down and do it so beautifully.
It's one of the features I like to put into every performance I do. I fall down. Yes.
Did you take a course in falling down, or is this a natural talent?
Are more producers aware that you do your own stunts?
I do. It is quite funny, actually. One thing I do a lot is walk into things as well. If you see the things I've done, I never really remember I've done it the previous time. I just think it's quite funny. So I'll walk into.
That's called a concussion.
I'll walk into a tree branch or something like that because I just think it's a bit quite funny to do that. But I hadn't really noted that I'd fallen over a lot. But I dare say I do in real life, so I'll probably do it in the shows. I don't.
Ain't misbehaving. I think that was in the script that you fall down a lot, at least in the first series.
Well, does it look good when I do it?
Beautiful.
All right, well, yeah. I'll do it more then.
A balletic
I'm going to
performance.
fall over in everything I do, definitely, from now on.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thanks very much. Hi.
Hi, I'm just a cue holder.
We have 2 questions from online. I'm going to kind of mix them together. We'd love to hear a little bit about reprising your role in Time Crash and Power of the Doctor, but also I hear there's this documentary about the return of Amsterdam that came up in some of the Blu-ray extras.
Yeah, there's, all right, so let me take this. Reprising the Doctor in Time Crash, was it Time Crash? Yeah.
Time Crash
and Power
and
of the
Power of
Doctor.
the Doctor, yeah.
Well, Time Crash, of course, that was for a thing for children in need. So it was a sort of 15-minute, 10-minute long thing. I was very pleased to come down and do it. I was in Spamalot at the time, so I had a little beard, so I had to shave off my beard the night before. It hurt a lot, and then drive down and do it. But it was great fun to do. I managed to persuade David to marry my daughter, and no,
wasn't there some element of trying to preserve the secrecy that you were doing Time Crash?
I'm sure there was, absolutely. Mind you, we took a lot of pictures, but yeah, I think so. I think it was a surprise. I can't remember if we've sustained that through to the actual.
I thought I had heard
starting.
something about that you'd shaved the beard for it, and they were sneaking you in, and then someone was like, "Welcome back, Doctor," and it was like, "How do people know?"
Yeah, I think I think almost certainly they were trying to keep it a secret. Yeah, but they drove me all the way down there in the middle of the night to Cardiff. But I think we were enjoying it, David and I, doing that scene because it was meant to be about I think 14 minutes long, but it was actually about 10 minutes long because we spoke so fast. But it was good. It was very, very good. And then Power of the Doctor, they just asked me if I come back. I was sort of an hallucination, really. Excuse me, my phone's ringing. I just make sure it's no one. Last time I did this, it was. Oh no, it's not anyone. That's fine. No kidding. I was at a convention once, and I was talking about the power of not the Power of the Doctor. I was talking about doing the thing we did for BBC iPlayer before. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The Tales from the TARDIS. And I was on stage in a convention, and Russell T. Davies rang me up on my phone. It's fantastic. Anyway, good timing. Power of the Doctor. I was sort of an hallucination. It was Janet who was really in it, quite a lot, and then I appeared as this strange hallucinatory figure. But the best thing was they made my costume again, slightly bigger. Oddly enough, because apparently I've just got slightly bigger over the years. So I've now got my costume at home. They gave it to me afterwards. So that's great. So now I've got two costumes because I've still got the original one. And when you hang them up together, you realize, God, time passing is a terrible thing. Actually, one second. I'm just going to take this to my wife. 1 second. Hello, dear. I'm actually on stage at the moment doing a question and answer thing. Oh, okay, she says. All right, yeah, I better go. What? All right. Okay, all right, bye. She's going to speak to me tomorrow, apparently. Okay. Anyway, the Power of the Doctor was great, but I couldn't do it when they all did it because I was working again on something else, which pleased Janet no end, because she had to come back down to Cardiff to just shoot that little bit with me. So yeah, that was it really. It was quite brief, but I didn't meet anyone else. Really, I didn't meet Jodie or anyone. They'd all finished. So I was just slotted in at the last minute. Then what was the other bit? There was something else.
Return to Amsterdam?
Oh, the Amsterdam. Oh, right. These are extras on the... What they do now is when they've got to think of new ways to flog you the same thing you bought many years ago. So now they're releasing all everyone's seasons on Blu-ray. And if you buy the Blu-ray box set, which does look rather attractive, I have to say, you get all these extras. And on the last one we did, we went back to Amsterdam, to where we filmed whatever the heck it was called. What is it called? Warriors? No.
Arc of Infinity?
Arc of Infinity, that was it. Oh, yes, that's right, Arc of Infinity. So we went back and we did that. But the best thing we did was they decided to, we were doing a convention in Kassel in Germany. So they decided that they would put cameras in the car and we would drive to Germany. So it would just be a sort of us talking about Doctor Who while we were driving to a convention. It was three of us, Janet, Sarah, and myself. But rather than talk about making Doctor Who, we just argued with each other for 4 days. So this thing that was meant to be, the guy who made it, he said to me, this was meant to be 10 minutes long, this segment. It's 71 minutes on the Blu-ray set. And it is just the three of us arguing with each other, as I say, for 4 days. It's quite an extraordinary thing. Because they just won't shut up, those girls. I mean, it's just, I mean, they ganged up on me on several occasions, and yet they'd lose their way. And there was Janet nearly killing us because I don't know how often Janet drives, but it's not often enough. And then there's little Sarah, and she has to sit on a cushion to see over the steering wheel. So it's all very... and then they're complaining with me, because I'm trying to communicate with someone on a walkie-talkie about which route we should go. And they're telling me I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm telling them they don't know what they're doing. And then they're telling each other that they don't know what they're doing, that each other's doing. So it's just 71 minutes of mayhem. But I think it's worth it. It's worth a watch if anyone's, got a Blu-ray set for season 20, I think it is. We've still got one more to go too. Lord knows what they'll think of to do on that one.
Hi.
Sorry.
I'm going to tell a story here which illustrates how much your fans love you. So don't be embarrassed, please. Several years ago, you were a guest of honor at Chicago TARDIS. And I had my niece, you are her doctor. I'm older, so I like you.
Is there a but coming here? Is there a but?
We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wasn't able to go, but I had a friend have you autograph a picture for her saying, Braveheart Noel. Her name was Noel. And I got a nice frame for it, and I packaged it up, and I gave it to her at Christmas. And everybody is running, enjoying themselves and laughing and smiling and such. And she opens it up, and she looks at it, and she's literally like that. She is gobsmacked. And she was almost in tears. She was so happy that you did this for her. And for years afterwards, I don't know if she still does, she had that picture up there with all the pictures of all her children. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think it's you that should take the credit for getting it done, not me. She shouldn't be thankful for me. She should be thankful to you. There you go. That's very nice.
Oh, I thought I saw one more back there. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to say, I liked the Black Orchid, that story, and I actually had when I saw them originally, I didn't see that one, and then after seeing a lot of the other ones, then I gotten around to seeing the Black Orchid, and it actually worked better because then I was like, oh, the Master, he's been in every one, and then it turned out he wasn't, it was like, oh, it's just the Master, it's just, and I know it it's not really science fiction, that particular story, but I thought it was just really, really cool story, but then I was wondering, in it, in Black Orchid, the only thing I thought was interesting was when you're accused of a crime of you are eager to show the police inside your TARDIS, and I thought, well, is it don't you usually try to keep the TARDIS a secret, and not, what did you think of that part, or what do you think of Black Orchid?
I did. I'm glad you enjoyed Black Orchid. It wasn't really my favorite story, because I felt it was, in fact, it was written by a man called Terence Studley, who I think had just taken a story he'd written for some crime show and decided to adapt it for Doctor Who. So I don't remember about showing him inside the TARDIS. That is a bit weird, yes. But he wasn't really. Doctor Who works best if the writer has some interest in science fiction, really, to me. And that was an occasion where he had not the slightest interest in science fiction. Just wrote a story it was fun to do because, got to play a bit of cricket, and the girls got to dress up. They liked that, I remember. But he wasn't, I don't think, really a Doctor Who story, as you say.
Yeah.
So that was probably something that we should have been addressed if I was too keen to show him around. I don't remember that, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought the great thing about Doctor Who is you can make it can be almost anything, and there's so much variety, and so I liked all the different ones.
Yeah, sure. No, it's nice to have variety. You're quite right, but as I say, I hadn't remembered that I did that, but it should have been something. It should have been addressed in the script editing phase of it.
Okay. And it also sort of explained or gave a reason for your costume and
yes.
Why you have cricket look to you, or kind of gave it meaning and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Placeholder.
Hello. I and my wife have just started watching The Last Detective. How did you end up getting the part of Dangerous Davies?
I was told about when I was doing very peculiar practice. No, it wasn't. I was doing Tales of the Unexpected, I think. A director said to me, "Oh, there's these books you'd be really good at in that part," and I didn't think much more about it. But then, when I was doing very peculiar practice, I noticed the producer was sitting in the gallery reading one of these books. So I just said I'd be good. I think it would be something I could do. I rather like the idea. I rather like the idea that he was. The TV at that time was full of hard-boiled detectives. He'd sort of start slamming the table with their fist and getting in the faces of the suspect. And I just had this idea. In England, at least, I can't speak for America. I don't know much about the police there. That most policemen are actually quite nice. I don't think they're all terrible people. They're quite nice people doing a terribly difficult job. And the idea that they were always portrayed as these kind of slightly dodgy individuals who were almost as mean as the criminals they were catching, I don't think, as far as I could see, was not true. And it probably isn't true in America either, although I know they get a sort of bad press over here. Whenever I've been stopped for speeding, they've always been perfectly charming. And I have been. Okay, so so I just thought it was nice to portray a detective who was more like the detectives I had come up against in my time, which was not many. But, I thought they were kind of decent people, really. So that was why I wanted to play the part and why I pushed to play it.
They're so mean to you on that show.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and I'm sure they're. But, well, it's an impossible thing, really. It's one of those things that happens quite a lot in these detective shows, I know, and it's inevitable, is that, he's meant to be a bit of a loser, but he always solves the case.
Yeah,
he never gets any credit for
like
it.
You're such a loser week
Yeah.
after week, but
I know,
no one pays any
winning the
attention.
yeah.
He keeps we get it wrong, and he gets the real guy every week.
But that applies to so many of these shows. Like, Miss Marple always solves the crime, and yet all the detectives always think she can't do it, and yet she always does. So she never gets any credit for it. And this, I think, it's one of those things you have to accept. It's a premise, like it's the same way, in a way, with Columbo, isn't it? He looks like he's dodgy old lady. He knows right from the beginning who did it. So it's just that is the artifice of the show, and you have to accept it. But I still liked it. It was a fun show to do, and he had a bit of an off-screen life, off-detective life as well, which was quite fun to play.
Hello again.
Hello, this time I'm not a placeholder. I'm actually asking a question. Earlier this evening, you mentioned that they were hiring you to do a bad guy nicely. Okay, so Death in Paradise. Going back to the cop shows, the character that you played in Death in Paradise was a sleaze bucket.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe. He was a sleaze bucket.
He was.
How did you scrape that up, being Mr. Nice Guy?
Oh, I'm an actor, It's no, I just liked it because it was a sleaze bucket. Well, those characters in those shows, you become a red herring. If you're cast as a red herring, then you can be as sleazy as you want. You can go to town on it because you're not actually the guilty party. I had done talking about Miss Marple, I'd done a Miss Marple years before where I was the murderer, but I had to play terribly nice for most of the show because otherwise they didn't want people to suspect. It's much more fun if you're a red herring than if you're the actual, murderer. Yeah, but I was also in there's a spin-off of Death in Paradise, which is called Beyond Paradise, and I play another awful person in that, but I play him nicely apparently. So people go, "Oh, why did he turn out so bad?" Oh, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, it just seems to be now quite a lot of the parts I get to take the curse off an obnoxious character.
Well, I saw that one of the things you did on stage was Dial M for Murder.
Yeah.
And you played the villain in that, didn't you?
Oh yeah, on the Murder.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, that was a good show, I think. We love to play those parts. The sleazebag. What's
Are we out of time?
My dear, lovely storytellers, we have gone over by 15 minutes.
Oh, goodness.
Oh.
Well, you're a Time Lord. Fix it.
Yes, please.
Let's go back and start again.
Yes. I look forward to hearing more stories.
What?
More stories the next 2 days.
Oh, I see.
Thank you.
There's more of this.
Very much.
We have him trapped. He's not leaving the building. Please come see. But for now, please, a big round of applause and thank you to Mr. Peter Davison.